Welcome to our channel, $1 Million Made Easy. This is a channel where we help you know your numbers. What we do is set up spreadsheets and then run numbers for people. I got this request recently. Said, hello, could you run one for $2,700,000 saved at age 60 with an 80% stocks, 20% bonds, and getting Social Security at age 66 of $3,200 a month? How much could one spend a month without the ending balance falling below $500,000? So this is one of the questions we love to answer to help people see their numbers. So let's go ahead and plug in the numbers here. This is one of the spreadsheets that we use. Got 2,700 or 2,700,000. Again, everybody's numbers are going to be different. This is at age 60. He wants to do an 80-20 split. Now, what we do on this channel is we do 80% in the S&P 500 using these returns. We project ahead what similar returns might do for you in the future. So 80% stay in the S&P 500. I'm just putting 20% over in the cash reserve. I don't track bonds. I'm just going to say you have a liquid account over here. So when the market's going down, you're taking these kind of sums that you need out of cash reserve instead of out of the S&P 500 because you don't want to sell low. We're going to do a 3% inflation rate. They wanted that. They want to know how much they could withdraw a month and have their money last. They said they like to have it last till age 95. So what we want to do is see where you might be. I've just got to set up what you have after 10, 20, and 30 years. We're going to run the numbers for every single year, which includes the depression type returns. And also, we need to realize the decade of the 2000s is also a down decade. Well, let's go ahead and run the numbers here. I'm going to go ahead and update this. And we're going to go ahead and we're just going to start. I didn't run these numbers ahead of time. We're just going to start out with some numbers here. Let's say, for example, 10,000 a month. Let's just go ahead and do that. That would be 4.44% withdrawal rate. Also, we haven't plugged into Social Security. They're going to get that. First 6 years from 60 to 66, they're not going to take. They're going to take the 10,000 totally from the nest egg. But beginning in the 7th year, they're going to get, if I remember right, what was that? 3,200 a month. So in this beginning of the 7th year, they get 3,200 a month. Not sure whether they accounted for a COLA on that or not, but we'll just start that. So in other words, the first 6 years, from age 60 to 66, they're going to be withdrawing this. We're increasing that by 3% a year. And then the 7th year, we're going to have this 3,200 kick in, and then that's going to also grow. So we're going to continue growing that out. So this is the withdrawals from this for the next 35 years, actually. I should show you for 30 years. I'm going to go ahead and update this. So beginning, it's going to be a 4.44% withdrawal rate. So these are the numbers. Only 1% of the time in the last 100 years using numbers, you'd be running out of money after 20 years. That'd be 1929. And there'd be a couple times, 2.8% of the time, you'd actually be running out of money in 1929 and 1930. Let me show you the actual graph for the 20 years. Here's the 1929, and here's the 1930. Again, there hasn't been 30 years since the decade of the 2000s, so that's not going to show up, even though that was a bad decade. But what we want to do is start increasing this amount, because what they want to know is how often would they have at least 500,000 left after 30 years? They said 35, but right here we got 97.2% of the time, you still got over $500,000. In fact, you look down in the 30-year column, there's just tens of millions of dollars because you got 30 years of compounding on this amount right here. Even though you're taking this money out, the market is returning these kind of returns. So let's go ahead and increase this a little bit. Let's go up to a different number here. See if we can get this a little bit higher here. Okay, it looks like running it at 12,000 initially. Of course, in the 8th year, the 7th year, this 3,200 is going to kick in. That's going to be growing by a certain amount. Again, they said 3,200. So beginning of the 7th year, that this 13,911 would be reduced by this 3,200 a month, and then we go ahead and increase that by 3% a year. If we did that, 2% of the time in the last 100 years, you'd run out of money in 20 years, and 4.2% of the time you'd run out of money in 30 years. Again, he's looking at 35 years, but he wants to know how many times would you still have $500,000 left at age 95. Again, we're just looking at 30 years. So it looks like 95% of the time you'd be just fine. In fact, a lot of these numbers are just plain humongous, over $10 million. That's the way the market works. Most of the time you have good years. That's just the way it is. 75% of the time you have up years, 26% of the time when you have down years. And even if when you have down years, unless you have consecutive ones like 3, 4 in a row, like we had during the Depression type years, and right here, the market comes up enough that even when you have 2 down years right here, look how it came back. Anyway, all that to say that you'd be just fine 95% of the time. You'd still have over $500,000 left. Let's go ahead and increase this a little bit more. So $13,000 a month, that initially would be a 5.78% withdrawal rate for the first 6 years, and it'd be considerably less when we got down to the 7th year when this 3,200 kicks in. Looks like now 92% of the time you'd have money left after 20 years, and 91% of the time you'd have money left after 30 years. Here's the 20-year graph showing you the bad decade there, and also around the year 2000. And of course, the 30-year graph's not going to show the 2000s. It's going to show more time if we had returns like the Depression type years. But hopefully, this is answering this question this individual wanted to know. What would be a safe amount they could withdraw monthly? If they're comfortable with a 91% success rate, they could withdraw 13,000, and if we did the 12,000, I think it was 94%. So let me just redo that real quick here just to make sure I'm telling the right numbers here. Yeah, 95.8% of the time, you'd still have over 500,000 left. In fact, you have over $1 million left. Actually, 2 million. Look at these numbers, folks. That's the kind of money we're looking at here. Starting out with this kind of money and having Social Security kick in the 7th year. But he wanted me to run the numbers, so it looks like anywhere between 10 and 12,000, you could easily count on at least 95% of the time having at least $500,000 left. And if you went to 13,000, it was 91% of the time. But that's what we love to do on this channel. We just love to run numbers for people and have them have some kind of idea of how much they can spend a month with these kind of numbers. Of course, everybody's numbers are different. So please consider subscribing to this channel. Please let people know about this channel. Let them know there's a channel out there that will run numbers for them. And we can answer questions like this. We can project ahead what semi returns might do for you in the future and give you some kind of a ballpark figure where you might be in the future. Please like the video, and thanks so much for watching.